The movie begins with a man named Santi, who was sleeping in his van. Suddenly, he woke up to find a policewoman named Begonia telling him that he couldn't park his van there. Later, Santi arrived late for work, and his boss, Romu, fired him after giving him his remaining salary. Before leaving, Santi had to clean the ship's bathrooms as well. When Santi was driving away, he ran out of gas. He somehow managed to reach a gas station, where he met his friend Pedro. Santi told him that he was about to get divorced from his wife, Medi. Later, when he met with the lawyer informed Santi and Medi that their property would be divided equally after the divorce. Medi expressed her desire to get the divorce as soon as possible, but the lawyer said it would take a few months. As Santi was leaving, a woman selling lottery tickets called out to him, and Santi bought a ticket for fun. He put the ticket in his cigarette pack and went on his way. In the evening, Santi arrived at his college reunion party where he met his friends Pedro and Marcos. At that moment, Santi saw Medi laughing with a man named Mario. Later, Medi told him that Mario was the owner of the supermarket where she worked. This made Santi very jealous, and he went back to his friends. Later, Santi came home and threw away the cigarette pack because he had completely forgotten about the lottery ticket. The next morning, Santi was taking a shower while listening to the radio when he heard news about the lottery. Suddenly, he remembered the ticket and rushed to find the cigarette pack in the trash. Finally, he found the ticket and was overjoyed because he had won the lottery. Santi immediately called Medi, but she didn't answer. Santi then went to meet Medi but saw her cozying up with Mario. However, in reality, Medi had refused to kiss Mario. After this, Santi went to the bank to withdraw his 25 million euros in winnings but soon became anxious and left. The bank manager, Damien, followed him out, but Santi drove away in his car. Suddenly, Santi looked back and saw that Damien was in the car with him. Damien advised him to use his winnings wisely. While having lunch, Damien asked Santi how things were at home. Santi told him that he was about to get a divorce. Damien then said that after the divorce, Santi would have to give half of his winnings to Medi, so he advised Santi to hide this information from her. Santi did not want to hide this from his wife, but later, when he saw Medi with Mario again, he got very angry. Just then, Damien arrived, and eventually, Santi agreed to keep it a secret from everyone. A few days later, Santi went to meet Mario because Mario had offered him a job. They had a bit of an argument, but in the end, Santi got a job as a stock clerk. After this, Santi used the lottery money to buy nice clothes and other things. Then he came home, hid all the new items, and started dancing happily. However, just then, his wife came back home, and Santi tried to hide his new clothes and watch, but Medi got suspicious that something was definitely wrong. In the evening, when Santi went to dine at a 5-star hotel, he saw a beautiful girl named Christina there. They both smiled at each other. The next morning, when Santi woke up, he was late for work. He hurried to the supermarket and apologized to his colleague Tanya. Later, Medi asked him where he had been the previous night. Just then, Mario arrived and scolded Santi, but Medi managed to smooth things over. The next day, Santi met a surfer named Erich because he also wanted to learn surfing now. For the next few days, Santi practiced in the sea and learned quite a bit. One night, Santi received a call from Pedro and Marcos, and he told them about learning to surf. They thought Santi was talking nonsense due to depression because surfing is a hobby for the rich. They invited Santi to meet up, but he declined, which surprised them. The next day, Santi, along with Damien, went to buy Romel's ship. Romel couldn't believe that the man he had fired a few days ago was now buying his ship. To get revenge, Santi bought the ship and made Romel clean the bathrooms. Later, Damien and Santi were planning to buy more things when they suddenly saw Pedro and Marcos approaching. They were very surprised to see Santi's new clothes, but Santi lied, saying the clothes were for his new job. Pedro and Marcos told him that he had been ignoring them lately and left angrily. Meanwhile, Santi and Damien had a great meal and then went to Santi's house. When Santi went inside, he saw that Medi's parents, Laura and Miguel, had come for dinner. Santi sat down at the dinner table with them, but he had a hard time eating. Soon, due to overeating, he had a stomachache and ran to the bathroom. While he was away, Laura asked Mehdi about her married life, and Mehdi lied, saying everything was fine. When Santi returned, Miguel noticed Santi's expensive watch. Santi lied, saying it was a fake and very cheap. Miguel then said it looked nice and asked Santi to get one for him too. Suddenly, Santi's phone started ringing, but he didn't answer it. When Mehdi told him to pick up the phone, Santi, in his nervousness, blurted out to Mehdi's parents that they were getting a divorce. Later, as Santi was leaving, he saw his friends Pedro and Marcos drinking at a cheap bar. When he was sitting in his hotel room playing with his expensive gadgets, he felt very lonely. He had so much money but no one to share his happiness with. Then Santi called Damien and told him about a secret plan. The next day, Pedro was at the gas station when a beautiful woman came and complimented his looks. Later, Pedro told Marcos that he had received a modeling offer. Just then, Santi arrived and sat alone, but Marcos and Pedro invited him to join them. They told Santi about Pedro's modeling opportunity, but Santi was not very surprised. Later, Marcos went home where he was taking care of his 2 young children alone. His wife, Lorena, came and informed him that his distant uncle had left them a lot of property. Later, Damien and Santi were talking together, and it was revealed that Santi was behind all this. They were playing golf when they suddenly saw Mario. Damien told Santi that Mario was just pretending to take a loan from the bank. In reality, he wanted to sell the supermarket, which would cause everyone to lose their jobs. He was pretending to be the good guy by saying he was trying hard to save it. Just then, Mario saw Santi and asked why he hadn't gone to work. Meanwhile, at the supermarket, Tanya asked Mehdi if it was true that the supermarket was going to close, but Mehdi said these were just rumors. Santi tried to tell Mehdi that Mario really was planning to sell the supermarket, but just then, Mario arrived and told Mehdi that he had seen Santi playing golf today. This made Mehdi angry at Santi, thinking he doesn't even give money at home and is out playing golf, living like a king. As soon as Santi left the supermarket, Marcos and Pedro arrived in a shiny sports car. They took Santi along for a fun drive, but Santi didn't feel good about it because Marcos was spending money on such things instead of taking care of his family. Marcos then retorted, asking if Santi's father had given him any money and asserting that he could spend his money however he wanted. Finally, Santi revealed that the car was actually bought with his lottery winnings, but they didn't believe him. Suddenly, Marcos lost control of the car, and they drove straight off a hill. During this chaos, Santi shouted out his lottery secret. They managed to swim to safety after a while. The next morning, Mehdi received a call from Mario, which made Santi very jealous. To make Mehdi jealous in return, he called Christina. That night, Mehdi went on a date with Mario, and Santi went out with Christina, but neither enjoyed themselves. Later, they both returned home at the same time and pretended to be happy. After that, Santi happily told Mehdi about the lottery, but Mehdi didn't believe him and thought he was joking. She got angry and walked out. Santi then took her to the shed and showed her all the expensive things he had bought. Mehdi asked why he had kept it a secret for so long, but Santi managed to calm her down with some explanation. Later, Santi and Marcos went to watch Pedro's modeling show, but the audience didn't like Pedro at all. Pedro became disappointed, and then both Marcos and Pedro blamed Santi for ruining their lives. Poor Santi was left wondering how he had ruined their lives. The next day, Santi called Damien, settled his accounts with him, and promised never to see him again. Meanwhile, Mehdi's friend Lauren advised her to file a case against Santi to get half of his lottery winnings. But then Mehdi saw that Santi had already transferred half of the money to her bank account. Just then, she received the divorce papers, but she realized that she still loved Santi. She also got a call that the supermarket was reopening. When Mehdi arrived there, Tanya told her that someone had bought the entire supermarket, meaning their jobs were saved. Mehdi went to give Mario the good news but then discovered that Mario was actually the one trying to sell the store. At that moment, Damien arrived and announced that Mario was fired and that Mehdi would be the new director of the supermarket. Mehdi was overjoyed and started looking for Santi. Santi was at the airport, and Mehdi reached there searching for him. After looking for a while, she finally found Santi. She gave him a hard slap and asked, "Where were you going, you dog, leaving me behind?" Then they kissed each other. After that, everything went well in their lives, and they lived happily ever after. With this movie concludes. I hope you have liked this movie recap. Please like, share and subscribe for more real recaps.